How does education expenditures affect youth unemployment? This is a topic that we will be analyzing today in my presentation. Introduction. As children and teenagers, we've always been told that we need to work hard, go to school, and we'll find a job. But if if you've taken a look at any statistics out there, you can find that unemployment rates are on the rise. And what's particularly more concerning is youth unemployment rates are on the rise. What we need to do is take a critical look at our education system and the government's contributions towards its future to determine if the system really does make youth unemployment more common. For this, we will analyze unemployment rates and government education expenditures from 35 different countries, and we will see if there's a direct correlation between them. So the hypothesis statement. My hypothesis for this analysis is that the amount of money expended on education is when it's increased means that you will see a decrease in youth unemployment between the ages of 15 to 24. The variables. For this project, I had to collect many different pieces of data and I based it all on country. I've chosen 35 different countries that we will take a look at. And for the X variable, we are using education expenditures as a percentage of the GDP. And while youth unemployment rates are very skewed between male and female, we decided to break them up in into two different Y variables. One set of data obviously is for the males and one is for the females. So first, let's look at the data that corresponds to males. Between all 35 countries, we can see that the average unemployment rate for males between the age of 15 to 24 is 20%, while the median for this data set is 17.9. The standard deviation of this data is 0.1317, etc. And by taking a look at the histogram that we have here, we are able to see that this graph is skewed to the right. Now to look at the youth unemployment rates for females, we can see that the average unemployment rate for females between the age of 15 and 24 is 24.4%, while the median for this set of data is 19.4%. The standard deviation of this data is 0.1646, etc. And just like the data set for the males, we can see that this histogram is also skewed to the right. The box and whiskers plot. Next thing I did was I put the data set into a box and whiskers plot. We did this to determine the values of the first quartile and the third quartile, along with the interquartile range, and to determine if there are any outliers that are affecting this data. For the set of data corresponding to the males, we found that the value of the first quartile was 10.3 and the value of the third quartile was 30.8, while the interquartile range was 20.5. Finally, we had to look for any outliers, and with the set of data that corresponds to the males, we found that this data had zero outliers. Now, to look at the unemployment rates for women, we can see that the first quartile's value is 10.3, while the value of the third quartile is 36.3. The interquartile range for this set of data was 25.7, and again, just like the males, they had zero outliers. Next, we're going to take a look at the two variable graph. For this section, we input both sets of data, the male and the female data, into a scatter plot, along with a line of best fit. We did this to determine the correlation coefficient to see if our variables have a strong or weak correlation. The correlation coefficient for males was 0.358, and for females it was 0.37. We were able to determine that there is a weak positive correlation and weak positive correlation, meaning that there is slight evidence that education expenditures increase. As education expenditures increase, the unemployment rates amongst males and females between the ages of 15 to 24 also increases. Conclusion. As our original hypothesis stated, we believe that countries with higher education expenditures would have lower youth unemployment rates. But the data that we collected actually confirmed the contrary. The data showed that when education expenditures were higher, the youth unemployment rate would increase. This would seem to indicate that there are other factors that influence youth unemployment, such as other than education expenditures. Factors such as work ethic, social support, government corruption, or mental health issues are all amongst the top factors which affect youth unemployment rates amongst teenagers. We will not be able to quantify some of these factors, and we may never know how impactful these are, but one thing we do know for sure based on this data is education expenditures do not tell the whole story. Secondly, I want to go into detail about the way we collected our data. The website we used had various different pieces of data, and we chose to analyze specifically GDP and unemployment rates. And the GDP, the numbers that we collected based on the GDP, they were collected in 2019, while the youth unemployment rate data was from 2020. This could have had an effect on the data and its accuracy, as there are many societal, economic, and political factors that affect these numbers. And the data that we used was from a fairly reputable source. Again, as I said, it was a CIA headline, it was a CIA article. So unless they didn't use census data, there may have been sampling or measurement bias, but this would be particularly only for the unemployment rate data. While education expenditures of GDP, these are likely released by the government, meaning that there's less chance of bias. These are my sources. Thank you.